Do we have exhibits that are being tendered that there are objections to?
Your Honor, the defense allowed me to review proposed exhibits 15 through 20, and I do have an objection to hearsay, self-serving hearsay.
As to all of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. DeCosta?
Yes, Your Honor. The government has entered into evidence text messages from September of 2014 in relation to Ms. McBanwa's work at the Adelson Institute to insinuate that there was something nefarious going on. I'm seeking to bring in text messages from exactly that same time frame that talk about her employment, talk about her having a schedule there, which would be consistent with correct work. Now, there's two cases I'd want to read into the record. First is Guerrero v. State, 532 Southern 2nd 75. As a general rule, defendants out-of-court self-serving exculpatory statements are inadmissible hearsay. However, where the state has opened the door, which they have here, by eliciting testimony as to part of that conversation, a defendant is entitled to cross-examine the witness about other relevant statements made during the conversation. Also, out of the 5th District, we have Antory, that's Antoury v. State, 943 Southern 2nd 906. Again, that's a 5th DCA case from 2006. Quote, the reason for this rule is to ensure that the jury understands the entire context of statements elicited by the state and as not to mislead by exclusion of relevant sections of the conversation. Now, this isn't just confined within time.
But what I really need to do is see the text messages you're talking about.
Your Honor, first I can approach and
Now, let me have them all.
Okay. There's 4 different topics. There's different argument for each.
Well, the one you're making relates to which exhibit?
It should be the top one. They're the ones that are dated for September. There's 2 of them. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers.
15 and 16.
Correct, Your Honor.
Right. I overruled the state's objection as to 15 and 16. What was the other one?
Your Honor, as to the next grouping, there should be 2, and it should be the next one that you have up. There's 2 sets of messages with respect to loans that were given by Charles Adelson to Catherine McBanwa. The government has brought out in several of their exhibits monies given to Catherine McBanwa to make it look like she's getting a gift, and as co-defendant counsel said, an annuity for being involved in the murder. What we have puts that into proper context, that she's paying him back for these loans.
And that's Defense Exhibit 17 and 18.
I apologize, Your Honor. I didn't organize which number was which. I was going off the documents themselves.
That's correct.
But it should be those.
Right. Talking about 11. I sustain the state's objection to 17 and 18. You make those part of the record, but they're not to go to the jury. Find them to be hearsay. Then we have 19. I don't know what this is. Is this some notes of your?
Oh, yeah. That's my cross.
Throw it away.
Your Honor, if I can take a look at where you're holding, I can tell you which one's which. Thank you.
Well, it's clear. I'm admitting 15 and 16.
All right, Your Honor. Number 19 and number 20. Number 19 has to do with something that this witness has already testified about, which is that Miss McBanwa saw Harvey Adelson for dental work. Not introduced with the truth of the matter asserted.
I sustain the objection to 19 and 20.
Your Honor, 20. It is important to note first, and I know that that the court already knows, that this witness has been presented as an expert witness to evaluate the finances of Catherine McBanwa. Information that was not provided to her was her employment at nightclubs for years. It's giving the insinuation that there is off-the-books cash being received and deposited. this expert, if she were given all of the information, including what is defense number 20, it would change that analysis. The text message that you have is from mid to late 2015, where Ms. McBanwell is talking about quitting the job where she's receiving cash tips at the nightclub. I believe that it is integral, and again, not introduced to the truth of the matter asserted. This is an expert witness who's testifying about my client's finances, and this supports where she's getting her finances from.
This expert witness has not testified anything that doesn't relate to a financial transaction that was observed. And I know you may be thinking, well, with Sergeant Corbett, I let in some other stuff, but he offered opinions that were based upon text messages. This witness has not done so. I sustain the objection as to 20. So we ready for jury?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All
Judge.
right, let's have a jury in, please.
Your Honor, if I can approach those two exhibits.
Right. These are two I admitted.
All rise for the jury.
Sorry for the delay, folks, but every once in a while I have to earn my money. All right. All right. So, everybody be seated, please.
Defense moves in what's been pre-marked as defense 15 and 16.
I've already admitted them.
Ms. Hull, you remember testifying to this jury talking about text messages regarding Ms. McBanwell and her employment at the Adelson Institute, right?
Yes,
How there was some information that was sent in a text message by Charles Adelson over to Don Adelson. You remember that?
yes.
There's more text messages about her employment though, right?
I don't recall any additional ones.
Now again, your analysis is based on what the government provides you, right?
Yes,
And you need all of it, not just bits and pieces. Now correct me if I'm wrong, her employment starts September 15th, right?
that's what it says in the memo field.
And in this exhibit, Captain McBanwell was sending a text message to Charles Adelson saying, can you read that?
Kind of out of focus.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's out of focus, that's the best it's gonna get.
Yes, I can read that.
You could read it to the jury, please?
Sure. I'll let you know on my availability so you can know more or less how many hours I can dedicate. And thank you again.
That's consistent with working for somebody, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Showing you what's been entered in is defense 16. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a text message from Captain McBanwell to Charles Adelson, September 17, 2014. Again, same time frame as her employment begins at the Adelson Institute, right?
Right.
What's that message say? You can read it to the jury.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll call them to make sure they put me in the schedule. You said my full name? Question mark.
Now, here's another message from Captain McBanwell, September 17, 2014, if you can read that.
No problem helping me out more than I'm helping you. I'm excited to start. Yay.
That sounds like somebody who's about to start working for somebody on September 17th, correct?
It could, but it doesn't reference what job.
We're talking about hours. I'm excited to start. You don't need to be an expert in finances to be able to come to a conclusion. That's somebody that's about to start work, right?
Yeah, possibly, yes.
Well, what's the other possibility?
Well, it could be starting a different job. I know.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and let's go back to the second page here. They're talking about providing a name, right?
Yes.
And in the text messages that were admitted by the government, it was Charles Adelson giving a name to his mother, the office manager, right?
Yes. Yes.
the next message, now correct me if I'm wrong, this is from Mr. Adelson back to Catherine McVanwell. September 17th, and what's that message?
Cool, it should work good. I did say you would call, and I did not give your full name, but I just call it.
But just call it's cool.
Cool,
Is that what
yeah.
it says? Next message, Captain McVanwell to Charles Adelson. And again, that says KK, right?
It's very common for OK.
Bits and pieces. This is the full picture, right?
It could be, yes.
Now, the government presented you with some exhibits talking about payment for repairs to a vehicle in loans, right?
Yes.
Now, you reviewed the Celebrite information for Charles Adelson, right?
I viewed the iCloud information in a different format. It was just on Excel spreadsheets, but the actual data was not linked like they are in Celebrex.
With what you have reviewed, you're aware that these are not the only text messages talking about loans, right? I'm not asking you for the content of it, but there are other text messages talking about loans, right?
I don't recall any other
Objection
text.
to hearsay.
I
Not
think it
listening.
calls for a yes or no. She said, I don't recall. Is that your answer?
Yes, I don't recall any other text messages on loans.
Would that be because you haven't
Move
seen?
on, Mr.
Last
because-
question.
No, move on.
All right. A brief moment, Your Honor. So, final line here. Reduce the glare, unfortunately, you can't. You put this together to show that there was a spike of money going into her account during a time period when she wasn't working, right?
It was two sets of information that was overlaid.
With the use of a Kleenex box in the courtroom, I've gotten this. If she were to have been working, receiving cash tips at a nightclub between late 2013 and the middle of 2015, we would have an additional bar right in the middle, just like that, right?
Yes.
Which would explain why there's increases of cash during a time period when she's not working day jobs and could be working more at night, right?
I never saw any evidence to indicate she was working at a nightclub in that time frame.
And again, your opinion is confined to what they provide you, right?
I had all of the bank records available to me in that time frame.
Did you receive any response to subpoenas? Did you receive the response to any subpoenas by the Tallahassee Police Department or anybody else at the government with respect to employment records at Club Fate,
No,
Hollywood Live?
no.
Any witness statements from coworkers, managers, club owners as to the hours that she was working and the amount she was making?
I saw no evidence that she was working at a nightclub.
Because it wasn't provided to you, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Had you received such information, would your analysis and opinion have been different?
Anytime there's a difference in information, it does change my analysis.
Great.
But I did not receive any information to indicate she worked at a nightclub.
And just to make sure that it's crystal clear here, and not to go over something we've gone over, as the financial investigator, you're not out there investigating things like an investigator for the Tallahassee Police Department, right? Let me strike that question. How many subpoenas did you send out with respect to the analysis on this case?
I did not send out any.
Those subpoenas were being sent out by either the state attorney's office, the Tallahassee Police Department, or any of the other law enforcement to get you the information, right?
Correct.
One brief moment, Your Honor.
You might.
Your Honor, if I could have a moment, the government has no exhibits. Your Honor, if we could have a brief moment, there's a lot in here.
Why don't you finish your cross before we worry about their redirect?
I actually think it's done, Your Honor,
Okay.
except for this one topic.
All right. Say,
Yes, sir.
do you have something other than what they're studying?
Yes, sir, I can proceed
Okay.
with that while they're doing that. In this case, you did have the ability to, if you wanted additional records, request that the state or the law enforcement on your behalf issue subpoenas for additional information.
Absolutely.
And you actually did that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you don't have the authority or the power to issue a subpoena in this case.
That's correct.
Okay. I want to go back to the beginning of your cross-examination with respect to the DHSMV records for the Monte Carlo purchased by Sigfredo Garcia.
Yes.
And you were asked some questions about it being sold a year after the fact for a $600 amount.
Right.
Do you know or have any factual knowledge of the circumstances surrounding the sale after Garcia purchased it?
I do not.
If you know, and I don't know if you know the answer to these questions, when you have a transfer of a vehicle, can you insure a vehicle without transferring title?
No.
Do you have to put a sale price or list an item as a gift on a title transfer?
Yes.
Now, if you put a sale item on a title transfer, are you taxed?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a financial benefit to putting a really low sales price on a title transfer for a vehicle?
Yes, there is.
And who decides what number goes on the title transfer?
If it's not on a bill of sale, it's the person that's submitting it to the tax office.
So if I sell something to you, private transaction, Craigslist, I mean, anything like that, and we agree on 3,000, we can write 300 on the title transfer when we file the paperwork?
That's speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
We can agree to put a much less significant amount on there for purposes of a tax benefit to us as the consumer.
Yes.
In your analysis of Mr. Garcia's bank records, over the time period for records that you had, did he appear to frequently use the services of a banking institution?
Only to convert his checks.
What do you mean convert his checks?
He would get a direct deposit and then he would pull money out and then basically use little debits, some debits transactions.
This is Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Just for clarification, what time period is this that you specified to?
Can you
Clarify your time period.
2015 to 2016.
Those were the only bank records you had for Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
And how would you describe Mr. Garcia's spending habits?
Oh.
I'm going to object to outside the scope of my cross.
Sustained.
You were asked whether, in your analysis of the Adelson's bank accounts, personal, business, investment, and otherwise, whether or not there was a significant withdrawal of a large amount of cash during the time period of the murder or before or after.
Correct.
Did the evidence that you reviewed suggest that the Adelsons had a lot of stacks of cash in a safe?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoste asked you, I'm now on to his cross-examination, asked you some questions about the Adelson Institute subpoena response and whether it was a legal requirement that an employer keep on file a job application.
Yes.
In your training and experience, how many years have you been doing financial analysis?
More than 30.
And during that your experience, do you frequently request employment personnel records from businesses?
Yes.
Is it unusual to not see those items?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Is it unusual to not see those kind of items?
It is unusual.
Was the packet you received from the Adelson Institute sparse in comparison to all the other employment records you've reviewed previously?
Yes.
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
you what's in evidence of State's Exhibit 109. Try and get it as big as I can. Actually, let me show you the bottom part. So from the records that you have summarized in this chart, I'm going to have to stand over here so I can see it. For the red items, those are all sequentially listed. For example,
Objection asked and answered.
Let her finish her question. Don't answer till I have a chance to rule on the question, please. Ask your question, please, Ms. Norris.
Yes, sir. For the sequentially numbered checks written on, for the sequentially numbered checks, was each date on the check post-dated?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Based on the date ranges in the memo line of the check, would the person receiving the check, Catherine McBanoa, know what time period that check was for so that she could deposit it after that time period?
Objection speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
You don't. Let me get back to my phone. Do you know the arrest date of Sigfredo Garcia in this case?
I believe it's May 25th, 2016.
And is it your understanding, and if you don't know, tell me, that Catherine McBanoa was not arrested until later?
I believe she was arrested October 1st, 2016.
But the checks from the Adelson Institute to Catherine McBanoa ceased after Sigfredo Garcia's arrest, not her arrest, right?
Yes.
On Defense Exhibit 14, this is the check from Sims to Ms. McBanoa that I think you indicated bounced.
Yes.
The date of this particular check, is that anywhere in this? Well, I can't tell. Anywhere in this time frame where this big red spike is?
No.
And that was actually a check from a bar or club or some type of business, right?
Yeah, Sins LLC.
Not cash, though.
Correct.
You were asked some questions about working as a bartender, club life, or something along those lines. If Catherine McBanoa had worked 1 to 2 nights a week, making on average $100 a night, maybe the best night $400.
Objection, speculation, personal knowledge. The witness said she does not know.
Well, there is a question, so let her ask the question. Don't answer till I have an opportunity to rule, please.
And I'll preface this. You were asked some questions about what evidence you had in this case about whether or not Ms. McBanoa worked at a nightclub or a bar, whether she got paid cash. Do you remember that line of questioning?
I do.
If I were to tell you, give you a certain dollar amount, $100 an evening, 1 to 2 nights a week.
Objection, counsel testifying in proper opinion, personal knowledge.
If you would let her ask a question, I can rule on whether
Sorry,
it's
Your
a proper question or not.
Too much caffeine. Sorry, Your Honor.
Can I have some? Okay.
Don't answer the question until I've ruled.
Don't answer the.
Let's get to your question, please, Ms. Norris.
This particular increase in cash deposits in August, in July and August of 2014 would working 1 to 2 nights at a bar for an average of $100 a night, maybe the best night $400 a night, account for the amount of cash deposits you saw in Miss McBano's bank accounts for that time period?
Objection, speculation, person.
It's a hypothetical to an expert witness. I'll overrule the objection.
If that were the case, would that account for the amount of cash deposits you saw in Miss McBano's account in July and August of 2014?
No.
Was Miss McBano, how would you describe her relationship with money? That's a bad question, I'm sorry. Would you describe her money deposit habits as financially responsible?
That's not a proper question. Move on, Mr. Norris.
Yes, sir. When you analyzed the records, you were shown Defense Exhibit 13. You're looking at January 8th of 2015, a check card payment to the Adelson Institute for $200.
Yes.
Do you know who which dentist she saw on that date?
I do not know what dentist she saw.
Not whether she saw Harvey Adelson, Charlie Adelson, or anybody else for that
Right.
matter.
I do not know.
Mr. DeCoste asked you about when people are in a relationship, sometimes one person buys the other things and vice versa. Who was doing the buying in the relationship between Charlie Adelson and Catherine McBanoa?
Charlie Adelson.
Did you find any significant records of Catherine McBanoa paying for anything for him?
No, I did not.
He also asked whether that would be abnormal behavior for people in a relationship to buy things for each other. Following up on that, would that be abnormal if they're not in a relationship and they're dating other people?
Objection and proper opinion.
Sustained.
Wait one moment, I'm going.
Hold on. Is that this? Your Honor, the government has a new exhibit, if we could go sidebar.
Yeah. I was asked if we wanted to go late today. I told them that we did not want to go late today. If y'all have objection to that, I can hear from you. All right.
No objection.
I won't identify the guilty parties. Come on, Ms. Norris.
Your Honor, at this time I'd offer State's Exhibit 184.
All right, subject to my ruling, sidebar 184 will be admitted.
May I publish?
You may.
Before I publish, you were just asking questions about Defense Exhibit 15 with the body about Katie letting Charlie Adelson know about her availability, and ask some questions about whether that was consistent with employment. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I want to show you,
Give us the time on that one you were just showing. I was just writing, it was September 14th.
2:25 p.m. UTC -5.
It's clearly two separate conversations.
Ms. Holt, do you see these communications between Charlie Adelson and Catherine McVanwa?
I can.
And on September 15th, 2014, can you read this message from Charles Adelson to Catherine McVanwa?
The bottom one. Are you coming for me to take out your wisdom tooth?
In response,
I can't today. I got the kids. I need to have someone watch them.
and then does the conversation continue? Let me know a day this week.
To try to identify who's calling who, please, or who's texting who, please, Ms. Norris. And
Yes,
if
sir.
she gets it wrong, correct her, please, Ms. Hall. Come on.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Okay. Now we should be better here. So this message from Katie to Charlie Adelson, let me know a day this week when I can come in.
Yes.
So that there's and then this call from Katie regarding scheduling after that
Which line?
line.
The bottom?
Yes.
Hey, I called. You're there from 2 until what time? Can you call me, or are you busy?
Okay. And then
Again, if y'all would identify who's texting whom, I think the jury would follow a lot better. Ms. Norris, you're jumping from one to another. Let's take them in sequence,
Yes,
please.
okay, just read Katie's messages from the bottom to the top to Charlie Adelson.
I couldn't understand what you just said.
If you could start right here, this message from Katie to Charlie Adelson.
And go up?
Yes, and they're in reverse chronological order.
Okay. If you are just hit me up tomorrow, it's not urgent. LOL, they do miss you. It has to be during the day, 8:30 at night. And Tamara, are you just going to numb me, or am I going to take something? Call me when you have a minute.
Again, from Catherine to Charles Adelson.
Good morning. My mom gets off really late today. Where are you on Friday? That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll call them to make sure they put me on the schedule. You said my full name?
Your Honor, if the government confirm what day the second text message.
It would help if you had the date and time. Give us the date and time, please, sir. You kind of moved it over where we can't see that.
Okay, trying to make it large. Where were we? So this is on the 17th?
Yes.
12:20.
Yes, sir. And then on the 17th, this is Catherine McVanwa to Charlie Adelson. Could you read that one?
Yes, no problem. You're helping me out more than I'm helping you. I'm excited to start today. Yay.
And what does Charlie Adelson respond to Catherine McVanwa on 9/17 at 12:23 p.m.?
Cool, it should work good. I did say you would call. I did not give your full name, but just say it's cool.
But just call at school.
Yes.
And Katie responds KK shortly thereafter.
Yes, it means okay.
And then moving up to the message on 9/17 at 3:29 p.m., what does Katie say to Charles Adelson?
Thanks again for having them squeeze me in.
And then what does she respond again to Mr. Adelson at 3:29 p.m.?
You're the best.
Is that consistent with Charles Adelson squeezing her in for having her wisdom teeth extracted?
Objection, personal knowledge.
Sustained.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I have no further questions.
I'm gonna allow recross on the last portion.
Thank you.
Garcia, what?
No, Judge, I'll defer to.
Okay.
Magnanimous counsel.
So I'd say this would be real brief, but it burned me before today. Showing you government 184. Make sure that handout. Now, it started out talking about wisdom teeth,
Yes.
right? There's some conversation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, this begins on, it begins,
It runs backwards. Because took me a minute to figure that out.
it begins on the 15th, right?
Yes.
Continues into the 16th.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, you don't know what phone calls are being placed in between these text messages, right?
I do not.
So you don't know if the context of these text messages have changed.
I do not.
You can't say whether in between this message talking about excited to start, and to quote you, yay, and then this FaceTime call, if it then didn't change back over to a dental appointment.
I do not.
But again, you don't disagree that there's a defense exhibit talking about Captain McBanwa letting him know how many hours she could commit, right?
Yes, I remember that text message. I do not know the context because I just read one text message.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Further, Ms. Norris?
No, Judge.
All right, juror, have a question of this witness? All right, you can step down. Call your next witness.
State calls Oscar Jimenez.
Do we need to keep this witness further? I'm sorry, Ms.
Yes,
Hall.
Your Honor, I'd like to remain.
All right, you
subject
remain
to-
under the rule.
Your Honor, this next witness goes into our motions in limine.
Let's go sidebar. Come on up here, please. All right, if you face the clerk and be sworn, please.
You swear affirm testimony about giving this case to be truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
I do. All right, have a seat, please, sir.
What is your name, sir?
Oscar E. Jimenez, Jr.,
Will you spell that, please?
OSCAR, middle initial E, JIMENEZ, Jr.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm currently retired.
All right. How were you employed back in 2016?
2016, I was special agent with the FBI.
All right. And what were your duties as a special agent with the FBI?
At that time, I was working human trafficking cases and innocent images.
Did you ever do any undercover work?
Yes, I did.
I want to draw your attention to undercover operation that occurred on April 19th, 2016. Were you a part of that operation?
Yes, I was.
And what was your role in the operation?
My role was to represent a Latin King member and approach one of the Donald Adels.
Donna Adelson? Where were you going to approach Donna Adelson?
This was down in Miami.
All right. Was it out in public somewhere?
Yes, it was.
Can you tell us the location where you approached her?
I think that it was down South 5th, South Miami. Can I look at my 302s?
Sure. Yeah.
The South Beach, Miami, Florida area.
All right. And so you approached her out on the street?
I did.
All right. And what was the idea? What were you supposed to do when you approached Mrs. Adelson?
Well, I was supposed to approach her and hand her a flyer.
Okay. What was on the flyer?
The flyer had to do with the Dan Markel murder or death, and there we had other notes on the flyer.
Okay, let's start with the flyer itself. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 120. Do you recognize State's 120?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
Well, it's the same type of flyer that we handed her.
All right, is it
That I
a fair and accurate copy of exactly what was handed, other than the writing that you're going to talk about in a moment?
As I recall it, yes.
Okay, Judge, at this time I'd ask to introduce State's 120.
Objection to 120.
Best evidence in 404, Your Honor.
Overruled. I'm sorry, Garcia.
There's hearsay on there.
I'll admit, 120.
I'm sorry, on 403. Objection.
And let me say, this flyer is being put in evidence to show what the undercover officer used to hand off what is in there is hearsay. You should not consider that as the facts. You've heard the facts firsthand, so they're not being offered to say that that information is accurate. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Kaplan.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jimenez, you handed a piece of paper like this one with this, basically just a news article about the murder of Mr. Markel, to Donna Adelson,
That is correct.
and that was on April 19th, 2016.
That is correct.
And you said there was some other information that was handwritten on the flyer that you handed to Ms. Adelson. Do you know what that information was?
Yes, it was
Objection.
it was a $5,000.
Objection.
Overruled.
Hearsay and best evidence.
Overruled.
Sorry, sir, you may answer.
There was a writing on there with the amount of $5,000 and a telephone number.
All right. And was this incident with you handing this flyer to Ms. Adelson recorded?
It was.
How was it recorded?
It was recorded. I had a body cam or a camera on my person, which recorded video and audio, and it was also recorded through the surveillance teams.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 151. And I also have 153. So 151 and 153. Let's start with 151. Have you had an opportunity to review that exhibit?
I have.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the recording that your body-worn camera captured that day?
It is.
All right. And State's Exhibit 153, have you also had an opportunity to review this exhibit?
I have.
And is that a fair and accurate side-by-side video of both the body cam video that you wore and also the recording that was done by agents that were across the street?
Yes, it is accurate.
Thank you. Judge, at this time I'd ask to move into evidence States 151 and 153.
Any additional objection?
No, Your Honor.
I rule it be the same. I admit 151 and 153.
Permission to publish 151.
You may.
Black shorts. What is it? Yeah. Okay, bud. Excuse me, Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? Just want to give you this. Listen.
You? You're scary.
No, don't be scared. Listen, I just want to let you know that we know that your family has been taking care of Katie and her friend Tuto for quite some time after your problem up north has been resolved. And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times, and we want to make sure that you take care of what he's going through the way you're taking care of Katie and Tuka.
I don't know what it's called.
Well, this will explain it. Thank you.
Judge, at this time I'd ask to publish States 153.
Huh?
Black shorts. What is it? Yeah. Okay. Okay, bud. Excuse me, Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? Just want to give you this. Listen.
You? You're scary.
No, don't be scared. Listen, just want to let you know that we know that your family has been taking care of Katie and her friend Tuto for quite some time after your problem up north has been resolved. And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times, and we want to make sure that you take care of what he's going through the way you're taking care of Katie and Tuka.
I don't know what it's about.
Well, this will explain it. Thank you.
Have you heard this type of operation referred to as a bump?
Correct, yes.
What is a bump designed to do? What's the purpose?
Well, the purpose of a bump is to approach the target or the individual and try to start a conversation or elicit some type of information or give some type of information.
Okay. And is the bump, or was this bump done in connection with a wiretap?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so the idea is to generate conversation that can be recorded, listened to and recorded by law enforcement.
Correct.
All right, and the bump that you participated in, I think you mentioned that there was a phone number on the piece of paper that you handed to Ms. Adelson?
Yes, correct.
And what was that phone number?
I'm looking at my 302 referred
You
to
may.
302. That was
Let me stop you. Is it 302 just your report?
yes, it's in the FBI. It's our reports.
You may.
302s. So yeah, the number is 305-712-6570, which was my covert cell phone.
Okay,
Do
say
that
it
one
one
more
more
time
time,
for us,
please.
if you would, please.
Excuse me, sir?
Do that one more time, please, sir.
Oh, this phone number?
Right.
Yes, sir.
305-712-6570.
All right. So that number was written on the paper along with the amount $5,000.
Correct.
And the idea was that you were posing as someone who was trying to extort this money from Ms. Adelson
Correct.
on behalf of, I guess, Mr. Rivera or his people.
Correct.
Okay. And did you engage in any other, we're going to listen to some phone calls that were a result of the initial bump, but I want to kind of fast forward a little bit and ask you about other bumps that you were involved in. Were you involved in another bump or a follow-up bump to this one on April 23rd of 2016?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, so you're not familiar with the letter that was sent to the Adelson Institute on that date?
No, I was not aware of that letter.
Let me ask you about a call to the Adelson office, Adelson Institute, on April 28th, 2016. Were you involved in that?
I was.
Okay, and how were you involved in that operation or that bump?
Well, I was calling the Institute looking to see if I could talk to Donna Adelson.
Okay, and was that call recorded?
Yes, it was.
All right, have you had an opportunity to review that call?
I have.
Showing you State's Exhibit 152. Is this a fair and accurate recording of the call you made to the Adelson Institute?
It is.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce State's 152.
Any additional objection?
I'm sorry, Judge.
Any additional objection?
Other than hearsay, Your Honor?
Right.
No objection.
hearsay is the only additional exception, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll overrule the objection, admit State's Exhibit 152.
May I publish?
You may.
Good morning. Thank you for calling Dr. Adelson's office. This is Erica. So can I help you?
Jess, good morning. May I speak to Mrs. Donna Adelson?
May I let her know who's calling?
Sammy?
Sammy from...
I met her last week, and I gave her some paperwork.
You met her last week and you gave her some paperwork regarding...
Oh, she knows what it's about. It's important paperwork.
Oh, okay. And your name is Sammy?
Yes.
Do you have another phone number where you can be reached?
My number is 305 712 6570.
Okay, because she's not available right now, but I can have her maybe give you a call back.
Okay, just tell her it's very important. I need to find out immediately what she thinks about the paperwork.
Okay, I certainly will.
I met her last week. Yes, thank you so much.
All right, have a good day.
All right, you too.
All right, and again, this phone call was designed to get the chatter going on the wire.
Correct.
All right. Does this pretty much sum up your involvement as far as this operation?
I believe I have another telephone call.
Okay, but I wasn't going to ask you about that one. I just wanted you to review that in case the defense wanted to talk to you about that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I just asked you to review that call, but I haven't asked you about it.
No.
I'm sorry, I did ask you if there's any other involvement. So why don't you go ahead and tell the jury about that other telephone call?
Oh, it was a call I received from Charles Adelson.
Objection, Judge.
Are you going into the substance of it?
No, sir.
All right. So your objection overruled. The question is, the statement is received a call from Charles Adelson. I'll overrule objection to that.
And on what date did you receive the call from Charles Adelson?
On my 302, it's April 28th,
Okay. At what time?
approximately 11:35 a.m.
All right. And was the call from Charles Adelson to you, did Mr. Adelson call that 305-712-6570 number that you had handed to Donna Adelson?
Correct.
Okay. Were you involved at all or tasked with listening to the calls that were on the T3 wire?
No.
Okay. So you didn't have to record those or monitor those in any way?
No.
All right. No further questions?
Cross.
Yes.
Special Agent Jimenez, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sam Zeng and I represent Sigfredo Garcia. I'm going to ask you some questions with regards to your investigation, okay? You said during direct examination that you played a role as a Latin King member, correct? Correct. Did you do any research to assist you in playing this role?
I've had gang experience working as an undercover, not necessarily directly with the Latin Kings, but I do know how the gangs operate and work.
Gangs in Miami?
No, gangs around the country that I've worked on.
So you have no specific knowledge of how gangs in Miami work?
Not directly, no.
And during your and this bump is to kind of light the fire under a wire, correct?
Yeah, we call it tickle a wire.
Right, you tickle the wire because you want to create activity, correct?
Correct.
Now, in your experience as an FBI agent and someone that has nationwide gang experience, a gang member would politely go and hand a person a piece of paper, correct?
Not at all.
Right, they'd rob somebody.
It would be a different approach.
You would agree with me that they would use the probability of them using force or a weapon is likely, correct?
Possibly, not always.
Now, at this point, in April 19th of 2016, Luis Rivera had not began his cooperation with the government, correct?
I don't know anything about that.
Well,
No
were you
recall.
aware that Luis Rivera was incarcerated at
Correct,
this time?
yes.
Right, so he was serving his federal sentence, right?
Yes,
So you couldn't light up his phone, you couldn't get a wire on his phone, correct?
no.
Oh, well, let me ask it this way. Did they do a Title III intercept on Luis Rivera's phone at that time?
I just know that they had a Title III. I don't know about Luis Rivera.
Okay, well, you'll agree with me that at that time Luis Rivera was in federal custody, correct?
Correct,
And you can't have a cell phone in federal custody, correct?
correct,
And all the phone calls that are in a federal institution are recorded, correct?
correct,
Okay, and you'll agree with me at that time, Charlie Adelson was not in federal custody, correct?
correct,
And neither was Catherine Magbanua, correct?
correct.
Sigfredo Garcia was still had his freedom at that time, correct?
Yes.
Was a Title III wired on his phone?
I don't know exactly whose phone they had the Title III on. I was just instructed to do a bump on Donna Adelson.
You'll agree with me that Luis Rivera being in custody would prohibit the value of a Title III on his phone, correct?
Can you repeat that?
Sure, no problem. The fact that Luis Rivera was in federal custody, he doesn't have a phone, so you can't do a Title III wire, right?
Correct.
Sigfredo Garcia wasn't in federal custody, correct? Correct?
Correct.
And he wasn't in any kind of custody, correct?
Okay.
So the government could have put a wire and listened to his phone, correct?
Could have, yes.
What about Jessica Rodriguez? Do you know who that is?
No, sir.
You'll agree with me that during the recording, you were quoted to Wendy Adelson as saying, "You've been taking care of Tuto and Katie," correct?
When I spoke to Donna Adelson?
On the recording.
Yes, correct. Or I said they've been taken care of.
I heard been taken care of.
Yes, that's it.
And you also asked for $5,000, correct?
That's what was on the paper.
Who told you to ask for that amount?
The case agent.
Was that Agent Sanford?
Correct.
And this was in April of 2016?
I don't recall the exact date. I just know the date that I bumped them.
Give me 1 second, Judge.
You know?
Did you have knowledge that Luis Rivera had a family relationship with a Latin king by the name of Sammy?
I don't recall that.
Because you used that name, correct? Sammy?
Correct, yeah.
That was a coincidence?
Probably the name just made up.
Did Special Agent Sanford, did he instruct you to use that name?
I don't recall.
But he did instruct you to put the $5,000 on there, correct?
Well, I didn't write the $5,000 on the paper.
Did you mention that you were a Latin king during your conversation with Miss Adelson?
I did not.
You just referred to him as your brother?
Correct.
No further questions.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Do I still call a retired agent?
In my heart, I'll always be an agent.
Then I'll go with agent if you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Let's talk about the bump.
The bump?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's like planting a seed.
Well, it's to, like we said earlier, it's to to spark something up.
Plant a seed, see how it grows. Fair?
Fair enough.
You want to see in which way those branches go for the purpose of to see who communicates, right?
Correct.
Are you into botany at all?
No, I kill everything that I try to grow.
I hope you're not referring to your line of work.
No.
Okay.
Talking about my plants.
Okay, so in this situation, though, we don't know the seed that was planted, do we? The flyer.
That's the seed. Yeah, that's what I handed Mrs. Adelson.
But this isn't the actual one that you handed her, nor is it an exact copy of the one that you handed her, is it?
I recall having handed her a flyer with the $5,000 and the cell phone number on the paper.
But you don't recall that exactly, do you?
The writing on it?
Correct.
What was written, the 5,000 and yes, I do recall that.
Do you remember earlier this year taking a Skype deposition with myself?
Yes.
Now, it was via satellite.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Kappelman was there. Tara Kwas was there. You remember that, right?
Yes.
And to give you the specific date, that was March 6, 2019. You remember that, right?
Yes.
Now, through the camera, you could see that we had a court reporter there that was taking down everything, and
Yes,
swore
yes.
you swore to tell the truth, right?
Correct.
Page 9, starting at line 15. Question: do you remember what was in that note? Answer: yes. It was a picture of the victim, Dan, and I think it was a dollar amount, some money amount on it. I can't recall exactly how it was written. I can't recall exactly. Those are your words, right?
Correct.
So you can't say here today that you know exactly what was in that seed that was planted.
Well, I know that there was a phone number. I couldn't recall the exact number because I can't remember the number that was on it. But I remember there was a phone number and that there was a dollar amount of $5,000 that was written on it.
But your words are you can't recall exactly.
When we had the deposition or now?
Would it help you to take a look at your words?
No, you can just tell me.
Go ahead, Mr. DeCoste. We're not going to just argue with the witness, right? Ask another question.
Now, we're talking about planting a seed in what would be controlled growth versus just letting something grow. To liken it over to your beard. You have a very long and full beard. One could just let it grow, or it could be trimmed, it could be manicured, it could be maintained to grow differently, right?
Correct.
Now, in this case, this wasn't just planting the seed and seeing how it grew. Instead, it was controlled, right?
To a certain extent.
When you walked up to Donna Adelson, you said, Katie, right?
Katie? No, I said Mrs. Adelson.
When you walked up to Mrs. Adelson on the video that we just saw, you said the name Katie, right?
Correct.
Said it twice.
Right.
You said the name Tuto, right?
Correct.
You said it twice.
Right.
Not walking up and saying, we won 5,000, here's a letter, and then seeing who they communicated with, right?
Correct.
Let's talk about the bump itself. There was an operational meeting before it, right?
Correct.
Miami Beach Police Department.
Yes.
You had task force officers that were present there.
Yes.
Now, for the jury, task force officers work for the local municipality, but also work for the federal government, right?
In conjunction, yes.
Sort of like an in-between.
Correct.
There was numerous agents that were present there, right?
There were quite a few, yes.
You were in from out of state.
No, I was in from Jacksonville.
All right, so you traveled.
Traveled, yes.
There was expenses to travel down to Miami.
Correct.
For you and other agents.
Correct.
You had lots of agents that were present.
Well, there were numerous. I don't know the exact amount of task force or FBI agents, but yes, we do have. On the surveillance teams, there were a few.
And that was to get the video footage, right?
Well, to cover the bump, yes.
You also had a high altitude plane flying overhead, recording as well too, right?
I'm not aware of that.
In your experience that you talked about doing bumps, isn't it consistent that you would have a high altitude plane or some aircraft flying overhead?
No. Not all
You've
the
never
time.
had that before?
No. Look, I've been I've been doing undercover for over 20 years, and that doesn't happen every time. So no, it all depends on the situation.
You worked for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, right?
Correct.
A good deal of taxpayer money was spent doing this bump, right?
I would assume. Look, I just did the undercover. I don't know about the finances.
We don't have a copy of the original letter, the flyer, as you call it, that was handed to Donna Adelson to show to this jury, do we?
I don't know what she did with that flyer, or a copy. I don't have a copy. No.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation didn't make a photocopy, right?
To my understanding, no.
We have no idea to be able to show to this jury. We have no way to be able to show to this jury the seed that was planted, right?
Correct.
One brief moment, Your Honor. Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Redirect.
No, sir.
All right, did you ever have a question of this witness? All right, you can step down. We need to keep this witness any further. All right, you're excused. Thank you for being here. Do you have another brief witness, Ms. Kappelman, or do you want to call this time to call a break?
I don't know how brief he is, we can get started.
Huh?
I don't know how brief he is, we can get started on him.
Well, if he's not brief, let's not get started on it. Unless you want to be the guilty party.
It would be you.
All right. We're not skipping this Monday. We'll be working Monday.
Objection.
What's that?
No, I'm kidding.
So don't discuss the case with anyone. Don't let anyone discuss the case with you. 8:45 Monday morning. The state's hopeful they're going to rest their case on Monday. Probably a day of defense case, maybe day and a half. We hope to have the case to you Wednesday. Things sometimes don't go as fast as we want, but Wednesday or Thursday. Yes, ma'am.
Is Wednesday beyond court?
Yes.
Are we in court?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Is that going to cause a big problem for anybody? All right. We'll see y'all Monday morning.
I just thought.
Anybody have any issues?
No, Your Honor.
No, sir.
Second it. All right. All right, everybody, have a seat. Come back to order.
I know that Special Agent Jimenez indicated on his direct examination, I barely touched on it across, that he did pose as a Latin King member and that he had done some research and studied gang culture. I think that this has potentially opened the door for us to call Dr. De La Cruz.
I don't think he's opened any door. I will, and I haven't ruled on made a final ruling on Dr. De La Cruz, but I will caution you, I have decided that if he were to get up on the stand and say Latin kings would only do crimes with other Latin kings, I am going to let the state call Mr. Rivera back and see what other criminal activity your client was involved with him. So you may want to put that in your consideration. But anyway, I've not made a final ruling. I'll make a final ruling when the state rests.
Thank you, Judge. So should I have Dr. De La Cruz preliminarily fly in to be potentially prepared to be called as a witness? Because, you know, he does reside in the West Coast, Your Honor. And I don't want to burden either the court or Dr.
I haven't made a final decision.
Thank you, Judge.
We've paid him a whole bunch of money already, so I guess a little bit more in the grand scheme of things is.
I'll have him here Monday, Judge.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, there's the issue, in, if I could turn it over to Ms. Kwas, with respect to the T3 calls, the wiretaps.
Yes.
I mean, we're at that point in the trial where potentially could come in, and I believe that it would be the proper time to deal with
Let's
it.
get anything taken care of we can.
Your Honor,
Why don't you come to the podium, please, Ms. Kawash?
So in regards to the T3 calls, I've laid out our entire argument in the case law that it doesn't fit within the co-conspirator exception. However, I know you're aware of that. What I want to differentiate from the court is it's our position that none of the calls should come in. However, I don't know if the court is of a different position. Like, for example, I anticipate that the next phone call the state is going to want to play is a conversation between Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson. And at this point, I can't find any hearsay exception. My client was not privy to that conversation. She wasn't even made aware of it. And it doesn't fall within any hearsay exception. And it's also violating our right to confront witnesses against us, because now I cannot ask Donna or Charlie Adelson what they meant when they were doing that phone call.
All right, let me be clear in
Okay.
my, so both of you said I ruled on the wiretaps. That's not accurate in my estimation. There were two conversations that were brought up in the motion in limine. The state agreed that they were not going to play one of them. I overruled your objection as to hearsay on the other one. That was the meeting of Charlie Adelson where your client is present. I've overruled your objection on that one. I have not ruled on any other wiretap as to admissibility or not admissibility because I don't know anything about any of the rest of the wiretaps. So if there's some idea that I've ruled on them, I've not done so.
No, and I was asking, Your Honor, if you were prepared to rule on them now.
I don't know anything about them, so I don't know. I don't know how I can rule on them. Nobody's given me any information on the wiretap. I would say, you know, if you're looking for some general guidance, if it relates to information being transmitted from the bump to another person that ultimately the state can argue was presented to your client, then I'm going to allow it because it shows the sequence of events and the train of events. If it's a totally unrelated conversation between your client's not in, Mr. Garcia's not in, then in a general ruling, those are hearsay and I'm not going to admit them. But nobody's provided me with any wiretaps. I don't know anything about who did what, when, so I've made no ruling. I guess at some point in time somebody needs to give me some information on what's being proposed, but I'm making no ruling at this point in time.
And Your Honor, is that the same position as to the transcripts for the Dolce Vita video, or you haven't ruled on that yet? I just want to make it, because you haven't.
I mean, obviously I'm going to hear the predicate for it, but I have reviewed the Undercover. I think, although there is certainly an audibility problem with it, there is sufficient information to make it relevant to the jury. So I am going to allow the conversation. I know you can't understand a lot of what your client says, but I think there is enough to say that it is a tacit admission, and I'm going to allow them. As to the transcript, I guess that depends on what predicate I hear from the state as the basis for the transcript.
Okay, because they were prepared by Agent Sanford, who wasn't there.
I'm going to hear their predicate, and I'm going to make a ruling.
Okay, Judge. Thank you.
Would it help the court to have his deposition in advance? Because we kind of went through the predicate before. I'm sorry to talk on Ms. Quas's point, just trying to give whatever I can to the court to help out in this.
Y'all provide me whatever you think would be helpful, and I'll consider it.
Will do.
Does the state have some way you proposing we consider these wiretaps? At some point in time, I'm going to have to make a ruling on them, so I don't want the jury sitting in the jury room while I do that.
Yes, sir, I'm happy to provide the item for Your Honor to preview, if you'd like.
You said you had 40 of them that you're trying to present?
Yeah.
And what form do you have them?
On a disc.
I mean, I'm not going to listen to 40. You don't have any transcript or a summary of any of them?
I have both. The summary is prepared by law enforcement, so I can provide you with that, or I can provide you with the transcripts.
Well, I would think, let the defense know what you're providing, but I'd like to have all three. If you have a video, if you have a disc with them on it, it would give me the opportunity to review if there's something I think needs to specifically be reviewed. A summary of them would be helpful, and a transcript of them would be helpful. Do y'all have any problem with me having those?
No, I would like a copy of the transcript. I don't think I've seen those.
We've never been provided transcripts.
All right, well, we need to get everybody copies. And I'd like to have a copy. When do you think you're going to, I guess you're going to get into that Monday.
Yes, sir, I can provide them to you this evening. How long are you going to be around? I can provide them to you. Are you going to be around for an hour?
Okay.
Get them to you within an hour.
Okay, and you're going to make copies for the defense?
I have copies of the transcript, so if my folks are listening, could you please bring a couple copies down? I can do that right now.
Okay, I'll be in my office. Anything else? All right, we'll be in recess 8:30 Monday.
Have a good weekend, Your Honor. Thank you.